right, and welcome to Success Stories. And I'm thrilled and excited for another opportunity to present to you not just a great overall job seeker, but I would say someone who I would consider a confidant and a friend who I've grown to appreciate, not just in her community because of just the person that she is, but because of the wisdom that she actually brought to the group, the community, and even myself. And there were some wonderful conversations that we had throughout this journey. So today I'm honored to have the opportunity to bring you a real job seeker story where she built real systems for herself, outlined those around real outcomes, and focused solely on a journey for herself, uplifting who she was from a mindset, from a health perspective, and also an individual who lifted the entire community with her and rooted for her, especially up to that magic day when that green banner came down. And so I'm excited to be able to introduce you guys to Linda Weitzman, who is, again, a friend of mine. And I'm going to give a little bit on her. I'm going to tell a little extra story before I ask her first question to make her just a little uncomfortable on here. But she's an individual. She loves dad jokes and puns. Again, from a health perspective, she will be completing 75 hard on October 23rd, which is a huge feat, an amazing thing. She has 15 years of professional work experience behind her. She's focused that time inside of operations, and she's really worked within 3 industries. She is a pure ladder builder for other individuals, and she focuses a heavy amount of her time, not just building strong work relationships, but building lifelong relationships within those workspaces. And so that's the reason why when we tell her story, it's going to be one that I think is a difference maker for all. But Linda, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to hear your story. So did I miss anything in that introduction?
I don't think so. I kind of wish you could introduce me to every room I walk into, Stephen. That was wild. Thank you so much. I was like, my goal of this podcast is to make you cry, but you might get me instead.
We'll probably both have some tears at some point, right? We were tight to this whole thing. So, but no, that I'm excited in many ways because I think that your story is one that a lot of job seekers will feel. And I think that's important that we don't lose sight of. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. Look, there's discipline that goes into this, and you are one of the most disciplined individuals we had that's gone through our program and living to the program. You were a great example of that. But that's not 100% of the story, right? As we've all discovered, there's a lot more to this feeling of grief that we go through whenever there is a separation. And so let me ask you your first question, which is if you could think of the headline that would describe the arc of your journey in a couple of sentences, what would that possibly be for you, Linda?
Wow. So my headline would touch on a couple themes. I'm afraid if you try to hem me into a couple sentences, it's a losing battle. So I'll do my best, but there's a couple, right? One is the power of community, and one is really the not being afraid to break down, because the breakdown can sometimes be the breakthrough. And in my experience, it absolutely was the case. But I didn't believe that that's how it would play out if I allowed myself to have that moment of crash. And because of the community, because of circumstances that conspired exactly how and when they did, that is the experience that I had. And I had a couple of pivotal moments thanks to the community and thanks to those really weird circumstances that came together. And I'm happy to say, I came out the other side, but it was a process and it was a journey, and it was a lot of really tough self-work to get to a point where there was a payoff and there were a few breakthroughs. So I think that's kind of overcoming that initial fear and those initial nerves around, oh my gosh, you find yourself involuntarily without a job, and that changes so much for you. And you have to rebuild not just your confidence, not just certain aspects of your day, but an entire routine, because you're not in a structure anymore. And trying to build one when you feel like you can't build anything is a real difficult feat. But if you let your community support you, you find your people, you let your people be part of the process, you can get there.
I love that. And the part that I hear consistently for successful job seekers, not just in our program, but just in the many that I've been able to meet over the years, and I get to talk to every single week, is this consistency of I love that you have to have a breakdown sometimes to have that breakthrough.
Mhm.
And I think that's the hard part, right? Because when you wake up that first morning after a separation happens, and I call it the Ricky Bobby moment, but in reality, it's true. It's you don't know what to do with your hands anymore because your daily routine is gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's always the start. And you know this, when we take you into the program and someone comes into the program, we don't start with just fixing a resume immediately. We don't start with just throwing you into a training program. No. It's really about getting the right mindset first. That's the reason why we do Mindset Mondays, is because the idea here is that you have to work through some of this grief mechanisms that happen, right? So take this back and teach us a little bit here around when you first had that separation. Let's talk a little deeper about the emotional toll that you went through, as well as, what was your journey like working through that?
Yeah, I was so frozen because you feel multiple things. And for me, the multiple things I thought the net result was, I don't know how to move through this. It was just feeling and knowing that there were things I needed to do, but not knowing which steps to take to actualize them and how to get moving and how to plug into that. Because there's so many practical steps to take. And then there are emotional steps to take that you don't realize are actually at that moment more important. And it's trying to check in with yourself and be realistic and be kind to yourself. It kind of conflicts with those practical steps, right? So you have to get really organized really quickly. And that feels very overwhelming. And so for me, when I feel very overwhelmed, sometimes I go and take crazy action in a good way, right? And I'm just like super efficient. And sometimes I just kind of shut down and I'm like, now I live on my couch. I'm not moving, right? So I had that moment for about a week of like, I don't know what to do. And the people who normally you would go to for support and for conversation are all at work. So it's not like you can chat through with them in real time. And one of the best pieces of advice I got, which I did not ask for, but I'm very glad I got, was find a career support group. Find some group of people who is going through what you're going through, who can help you. And not just because they don't have their jobs, but because they're figuring out how to get one. And there are so many things to learn and unlearn, importantly, about job seeking, because this market is wild. And that's a whole other topic. We could spend 3 hours just on that subject, but we won't. So I joked, like, you need a PhD just to understand how to navigate this market, because it's historically psychotic. And that was really important that someone gave you that advice, because it felt, number one, actionable, and number two, so human. Instead of just being like, well, you need to fix your resume. Yes, obviously I know that, but how? What do I do? And so that turned out to be the key piece of information. And so I was going to these webinars and stuff and trying to figure out how exactly to do that. And it was a classic one thing led to another that led me to JSC. And that was really how I was able to start putting one foot in front of the other, because up until that point, it had been total inertia and I did not know how to break out of it. And I also didn't feel like it was okay to ask people for help, because I didn't know what help I needed, first of all. And second of all, I didn't want anyone to worry about me. And anytime people would reach out and ask, how are you doing? What's going on? Do you need anything? My knee-jerk response was, no, I'm good. I'm good. I got this. I'm going to be fine. Don't worry about me. I'm strong. I'm tough, whatever. And that's true. I am those things, but it doesn't mean I didn't need help. And it doesn't mean I should have hesitated to ask for it. So that was something that I learned the hard way, or relearned, because I already knew that, but rationally you're just not there when you're in the thick of stuff,
Yeah, no, and there's a couple pieces of that I go back to, and I think of moments. And so I'm going to go take us down a little memory lane. I remember the first time that we walked through selfish and selflessness, right? And I remember the look on your face, like, you're an idiot. And I felt like that was such a great growth moment for the two of us on the workshop, because there was multiple people there. It wasn't like it was just you and me hanging out having that conversation. And I remember being fairly direct in that. And I think it was that moment that you and I started on our journey of a relationship, right? And I think it's one of the reasons why I love what we get to do, and I have a deep passion for this, is because we truly do believe that, yes, these are workshops. Yes, there can be 10 people on a call at one time or more, but we myself and Tina really work hard to get to know every single person, and people like you who lean into that is really what makes the program so special to us. So from a very selfish perspective, I appreciated the fact that you leaned in on those moments and took sometimes that very direct statements and worked with it, right? And moved, because I think that was the other thing. You talked a lot about structure, and that's what makes I think the program really unique. So I want to ask you this, and I'll make a statement about a conversation I had, so don't let me forget. My ADHD will take over, but I've got a statement beyond this, but it's going to lead into this next question that I have to ask you. So coming into the program, I know you obviously you had some concepts of support group, and that was kind of something what you were looking for, but what were you really expecting from the program versus, say, maybe what you got out of it?
It's such a good question. And 100% honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was something recommended to me by someone I trusted. And I had facilitated a support group for years for something totally different. And I knew the power in that. So I wasn't looking for exactly a support group, right? I'm going to mental health support you. It was more of I needed to be with people who knew firsthand what I was going through, because there's that shorthand right between you when you all speak the same language, because you're all going through it. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to explain what something feels like. People know, they're in it also. And what I was hoping to get, though, was a place where I was understood, a place where people appreciated the difficulty of the moment, and where we were going to emotionally support each other, but also not let each other off the hook, because it can be that slippery slope or a fine line between commiserating and just enabling. And I wanted to make sure I was getting support, but also motivation. And the way the materials and the courses were designed, I could tell that so much thought and care had gone into that from you and Tina. I had no qualms about the value of what I would be receiving from it, even if the community didn't come along. And fortunately and unsurprisingly, they did, because communities take their cues from their leaders. And yes, it is sometimes pure good luck that we have the members that we have and the quality of personality and character that we have. But it really is the environment setting that you and Tina built, and the way that you establish the character of that collective dynamic that makes it possible for people to connect in this way, not just with the material, but with each other and with each of you. So I got what I was looking for, even though I didn't know what I was looking for. And I think it was all the things that I needed at the right time.
That's amazing. And you know what I hear from that, and it does bring me to some strong emotions, because the idea here is, it really is about human. It's a dehumanizing moment.
Yes.
When you have when you have a job loss, a separation, in whatever form of terminology you want to place on top of it. The reason why it is so similar to the grief of a loss of a loved one is because the emotions you go through are very, very similar. And so the program is designed to, I love the way you said that, not commiserate or stay in that or stay static, but it is to recognize it, to feel with you, to connect with you, and then say, okay, now we got it, we got to go. And because if you stay there, then you never really feel the value of and the power of owning control of your system. Mm-hmm. And those system and processes are so important. And this reminds me of the conversation. It's another perfect segue. I was having a conversation on our partners podcast with one of our partners, and they brought up this point that this is not just a job seeker problem. This broken system that we're in is actually on the hiring teams as well. They feel it, right? They're overwhelmed. He was speaking, and 3 out of 4 CEOs had to pull down job openings because they were overwhelmed with bot applications, and all of those bot applications in the hundreds Hundreds were so poor, and it was taking so much time to work through them. So again, AI is a huge thing for me. You know that, and I just want to make you understand that, and all of our listeners know that the belief in what we're trying to accomplish as job seekers, as well as companies, we all need to come together, and we all need to find a way to cut through some of the static and some of this noise. And I think something you did so well, and it's going to segue into my next question, is, you utilized the community to help with that, but you guys also integrated the teaching. So talk to me a little bit about, how did you do that as you emerged as a community leader, as you were, right? How did you feel like you did that successfully, and what kind of advice would you give to anyone, say, joining our community or joining any community at that point, or even just being a voice on LinkedIn to do what you were capable of doing, and not just for yourself but for others?
What a rich question. So I have a very love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. So I'm gonna skirt that part of the question, because most of the time it's like a toxic wasteland that I would rather not be in. But with the community, it is very personal. It's the opposite of LinkedIn. It's not, AI garbage and a bunch of self-promoting drivel that people write to, I saw a weed yesterday and it reminded me of personal growth. I'm not here for that. But in the community, I think something that not just I did well, but I think we all did well, was because we built that trust, we built that collective identity. When we had real questions about a part of the process or a piece of our resumes that maybe we could have worded more currently, to sound better, more marketable, we were really open about our perspectives. And I remember one example that's coming to mind is there was a member of the community who was trying to use this moment to pursue sort of a different path and had been working on certifications and stuff, and was like, I'm thinking about maybe changing this title on my resume, and I'm not sure if that's the right move or not. And I was like, I changed my title so that it sounds like something that's recognizable to any employer and not to the internal lingo that my past employers have used, because it's so specific. It can be so specific. You have to make your title appeal to a mass wider audience that's going to understand what those sequence of words means together. And that was a moment where she was like, oh, okay. Yeah, of course I should do that. And I had many moments like that too, receiving guidance from members of the community, where even there was someone who was new at the time, who's been there a while now, is one of my favorite content posters in the Discord channel, but was something like I had a Zoom interview coming up, and this person offered to get on and do a trial run with me, because he's like, I had an experience where it totally backfired and I couldn't get it to connect, and we wasted all this time, and in the end they didn't reschedule the interview, and it was something terrible happened. And so instantly, this person didn't know me. The only thing we had in common was being in this group, and his first reaction was, heard this person I don't know but who is in the same spot as me is having a Zoom interview. I had this experience. Let me see if I can help her avoid having the same problem. And I didn't take him up on it, but the gesture was so meaningful. And that's the kind of thing you can't get on LinkedIn. You can't get out in the ether. That only comes from connection and from people who have empathy, because that's how they're built, right? And because they're going through something that really sucks and is hard, that even your friends don't think to ask stuff like that, right? So the kind of lessons that you learn in this setting are so different. And like you said, I think human's the word today, right? It is so human, and that is the connective tissue, is we build it together. And one of the most powerful moments that I've had as a member of this community is the day, remember when for some reason there was a scheduled session, but you and Tina there was a glitch and it wasn't on your calendars, but it was on ours. So 4 of us came in and we just kind of interacted with each other free flow, right? And that was one of the most authentic exchanges and one of the most meaningful that I've had, because we were just like, here's what I'm going through. Here's what I'm going through. What do you think about this? Maybe I should try this. And just everyone sort of giving really honest takes and perspectives and sharing their own experiences and their thoughts, and from a place of really caring, right? And that's rare, and that was really special. And that's one of the things that I will always carry with me as like, wow, what a lucky thing I wound up here. Not lucky that I, didn't have a job and that's what got me to that. But if that had to happen, thank goodness I landed where I landed, because without that, my story would be totally different.
No, and you know what I think that's great about that is it again, maybe the theme here is human, because it takes a true human moment to offer assistance to someone you don't know. It takes a true human moment to be able to connect, as the four of you did on that call, and because of that, you guys altered the way we even run the Discord and how we run because it was such a powerful, wonderful mistake. And it's something that I look back on fondly, and I just hope I mess up that way in the future, because it worked out really well for everyone.
Maybe it was an experiment. You did it on purpose.
Yeah. Make that clear. Yeah, I'll take that.
You orchestrated that totally.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I'm always a step ahead. I believe in that chess game, right? It's
absolutely
chess above checkers. Yeah, chess above checkers. Yeah, but that continues in this path, and I think through the idea that there's a lot of things that you work through in the early stages of you joining the community, and I think that's the part I want to go to next, which is what did you need to hear most in those early weeks to kind of help you move a little bit?
I needed to hear what Tina said to me, and I didn't realize that that's what I needed when I needed it. But I did a session with Tina really early on for resume cleanup, which was very important because I hadn't made it ready for 2025's job market. And I had a session with Tina where, in her inimitable, perfect Tina way, she kind of paused partway through and she's like, Linda, listen, I'm concerned that you are still really in the thick of processing what you're going through. I can see it. Until you're able to present as if that's not the case, you're not going to have a successful experience, right? So I don't know what her exact wording was. Of course, I'm paraphrasing, but whatever it was she said, there was something also about the way she said it, with this just I'm going to cut the crap and shoot straight with you. I'm going to do it with love, but you're going to hear it, right? It was very just true, just straight shooting true. And for some reason, something about that, I'm sitting there at this point, Tina's basically a stranger to me, right? We'd never had a just one-on-one conversation. And I fully just started sobbing, sitting across from her on the computer, just I'm like, okay, I'm just crying now. This is happening. Cool, great. I don't like crying in front of anyone, let alone a stranger. And I let it happen. She let me let it happen. And she knew what I needed. She knew that it was more than just, you need to fix your resume. It was, you kind of need to fix yourself. You're not doing the job you think you're doing, projecting being fine, because I'm not buying it and I don't even know you, right? So it was like, okay, well, that's some really, really concrete feedback that I need to sit with and figure out how to move forward with. And when I talked earlier about the breakdown being the breakthrough, that was breakthrough number one. And it was the most valuable, the most important, the most uncomfortable by far, but the most critical at the right time. And she kind of became like my partner in that process from that moment. And without that, basically, intervention, I don't know where I would be, because I would probably still be going through the motions and faking it, right? Of like, I'm good, guys. Don't worry about me. I got this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I got this. And she forced me to recognize I'm not okay. And also, I don't got this because I don't know what I'm doing, right? So that was what I needed to hear. And I'm so glad I heard it.
It's so great. And she has an uncanny ability to be able to do that at the most strange times, where she just can lock in and pop, right?
It's absolutely, she's got a gift.
Yeah, she really does. It's pretty impressive. So let's keep rolling here in the idea of, if we want to think through some of the breakthrough, what were some of the biggest practical blockers that you kind of had to shift and move, or my term I love, dominoes, you had to overcome?
You and your dominoes. That was another time I looked at you kind of like, That
What?
can't, you're not right about that. Guys, Stephen's right about everything. Just don't argue. The big blocker, there were several, but the one that was the biggest was I couldn't get in a room. I couldn't get an interview. And I knew my materials needed help. And Tina gave me so much of that help to the point where my resume was finally updated and optimized to be compatible with this market. She helped me with my LinkedIn profile, all the things that I needed to do practically, so that what Tina likes to say and what you like to say is that these materials are marketing documents that speak for you when you're not in the room to speak for yourself. My PR was trash. So I had to really dig in and make it good so that word of mouth that was preceding me made me an appealing candidate so that I could get in a room, because I'm a great interviewer, but I never had the opportunity to use my interview skills because I wasn't getting past the ATS. And so once that finally started happening, once I understood well enough what I needed to improve, how I could become more marketable, more attractive as a candidate, more project my skills, present myself better, I couldn't have gotten any further without that really important set of critical steps. So all the workshops that I went to, and I went to most of them more than once just to make sure I wasn't missing anything, that's when things started to change. And I finally saw the needle move. I got some traction. I was getting into rooms. I was getting invitations to interview. It felt like everything started shifting and the momentum totally picked up after that.
Yeah, I when I go back to that moment too, I remember that confidence switch, right?
Yeah.
And it was that authentic self of Linda starting to come out, which was impressive, right? It was a whole different individual sitting on those calls and all of a sudden giving advice, which was so cool to see that moment. But one of the things that you did lean into was utilization of AI, but you're an extremely authentic person.
Yeah.
So how did you balance that? Because that's a common question now. We now work that into our course, and you help bring some of this along. So how did you do that? And what advice would you give to other job seekers as they navigate those waters?
Yeah, I don't love AI, and I want to. I've embraced it in spite of myself, because it's here, guys. It's here and it's not going away. So get in and make your peace with it, because it can work for you. But it's a process like anything else. It's new. This marketplace is different. This technology is always changing. It's always advancing. It's rapid. It is relentless. And if you don't use it, you are making the choice to be left behind. So I had to kind of wrap my head around that I do have a lot of really complicated feelings about AI in general, specifically when it comes to anything in the employment space. But as a job seeker, trying to land anything where it's hundreds of roles, who knows how many of them are real, who knows how many of them you have a shot at. There's so much that happens behind that curtain that you can't see. You need to give yourself every advantage possible. And one of those advantages is AI, because guess what? Everyone else is doing it. And if you don't know how to use it, you are doing yourself a tremendous disservice. And I had to really swallow that pill, because I was reluctant and very resistant, but I came around. It didn't take as long as I'm making it seem like it did. But just to emphasize, I'm still like not 100% on board with it, but I learned how to use it. I learned how to make it work for me. And it was having to coach myself up using the knowledge and the logic that you and Tina were so good about instilling in us, and just the evidence, right? There's so much data about this, that AI is a critical part of any job seeker process, and you've got to make it work. You just have to use it. And if you don't know how, you're making a choice to give yourself a disadvantage, and that's not going to help you.
Yeah. And I think the cool part of what you did and it's really become an integral part of how so many of our job seekers utilize AI is it just is an assistant. It's not there to change who you are, and you live that space so well. But as I think through all of these different dynamics that we discussed today, the overarching theme here is you kind of identified early on through some of the courses of the areas that you had strengths in and areas that you had weaknesses. And I think what was really cool is even listening to you talk through it again, it's taken me back. of watching you kind of build your foundations, right? And our dream for every person that joins our workshops and joins our membership program is that, they'll learn how to fish, right? We never want to give you a fish. We want to teach you how to fish so that you can do these things over and over and over again, but also so that the individual, the job seeker, and you did this so well, started to branch and create your own system off of it, right? And you have to do that so you keep that human element, that authentic human element of job seeking so clear. And I thought you did that incredibly well. So as I think through that, I know there was massive breakthroughs for you, but if you had to name a single maybe lever or move that really put it all together for you, what was that really was your unlock to help you get to your breakthrough moment?
So you can't see this, but behind me on this board, I could it just says say yes, right? So I had this sort of epiphany that was like, why am I saying no to anything right now? Life-wise, work-wise, why am I saying no? This actually kind of came from a conversation that Stephen, you and I had, we had that really long philosophical conversation we were on the phone about something totally unrelated, and it turned into this of like, this sucks. Not having a job sucks. But you know what? You have the gift of time. You can do whatever you want as long as it's healthy and not hurting anybody. And that's when I decided I'm going to take a trip because I freaking want one and I deserve one and I'm tired and I have the time. But I also decided in general, just adopt this. It's so much healthier to say yes to things, and it feels better than constantly shutting yourself out of possibilities. So once I kind of hit that, I had that light bulb go on. I was like, I'm going to say yes to even the most bizarre interview invitations, right? And one of those, I went pretty far in the process with this particular prospect. And in the end, I didn't get it because they asked me to do what I believe was a rather absurd take-home assessment task. I will spare the details because they don't matter. But what does matter is from that, I was like, I have learned that I can set myself up for total embarrassment and survive it and not be that phased because I still damn near got a job out of it, right? So like anything is on the table. I can surprise myself and leave space for that. But I was so like, at that moment that I got that rejection, I also had some very strange things happening in my personal life. And these things happened within the same like 48 hours to the point where instead of having the reaction like I had at the beginning of my unemployment journey and freezing, my brain shut down, but my body was like, let's go. We're going for a run. And I was like, you sure? Like as my legs are carrying me out the door, like, and that was beginning of June. And ever since then, I run every day. Who am I? I don't, what's happening? And so it's just that moment of like, say yes to the things around you, but also say yes to the things that your body tells you, because it knows what you need. And saying no to it or shutting it out is saying no to yourself. And whose side are you on if you're not on your own side? So I think just getting really healthy mentally, getting healthy physically, getting healthy psychologically, emotionally, all these things are the same package because you're the same you. And if you don't help yourself in the process, it's just going to be a longer, more difficult thing. And I think you already have enough to contend with without kind of getting in your own way. So beware the accidental self-sabotage. And that second surprise breakthrough is the thing that really turned the corner, because it was not long after that the process I wound up getting my offer from started. And I don't think that's a huge coincidence. I think that was things lining up the right way.
Oh, that's great. And I think the key theme that we're hearing again and again is that you took those small wins and you moved, right? You never, even setbacks were an opportunity for you to take a step forward. And I think you embodied the 1% philosophy every single day, as well, if not better than anyone else that's been a part of the program. So huge tip of the cap to you. But as we kind of get closer to our close here, I want to spend a moment for reflection. And I want you to really think through if there was anything you would want to say to a job seeker in this current moment, or even to yourself for that roughly 3.5 months ago when before you landed your opportunity. What would you say as advice?
Well, something that's really important that sounds easy and maybe obvious, but isn't, or that can just be really important to hear at that moment when you find yourself in the position of not having a job, is remember who you are. You're not this situation. You are not what happened to you. But more importantly, you have needs and you have your humanity, to keep our word in play. And you need to honor that. So something that helped me that I would pass on to other people, I actually read this in a book not that long ago, is think of who you were when you were a child. Remember the things that made you happy and brought you joy when you were a kid, because that is the purest, most real joy that you can experience. And do that for yourself as an adult. And for me, you know, like I was great at being alone and I was great at being social as a kid. But one thing that I've gotten away from is I was an outside kid. Like there are outside cats. I was an outside kid. I loved climbing on trees and, you know, running around barefoot. That was what I did. And so there was a day that I was like, after I read that, I was like, I'm going to do this right now. And I went outside in my bare feet and I just like laid in the grass and it felt amazing. Like it's so simple and silly, but just those moments of stillness and those moments of being in touch with your core self from so long ago that you forgot who it was. It felt like kind of honoring and protecting my inner child. Like I would honor and protect my actual child. And it brought something back, right? And like, it was such a simple thing that was like, joy doesn't have to be that out of reach. It doesn't have to be that hard to find. It's actually always available. You just have to remember who you are. And it's easy to lose sight of, but you take a minute, you breathe, you let it come back to you, and then you do something to bring it joy. And it was restorative. Like I think restoring yourself and knowing the moments in your life that you were the happiest. What were you doing that made you happiest? Were you keeping track of your health? Were you doing activities that allowed you to interact with people who are important to you? For me, it's a balance of all of that and more, and tapping into it and making sure I was building time into that, into this routine that I had to then create myself because work wasn't doing that for me at that time. That is the most you can do for yourself, the best form of self-care. And it is what you need, because yes, you need to be looking for a job, but you can't do that if you're not feeling right.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool is the theme from this. Again, we're going to stick with that human idea, but the fact that you gave yourself grace, the fact that you understood that. Now, what everybody doesn't see, and what they probably haven't heard, even in this podcast today, is your relentless pursuit for actual structure. And I think that is something that everybody needs to know, that if they've listened to us for this long, yes, you overcame a lot of the emotional setbacks or grief moments, if you want to call it that, throughout this process, and you did it exceptionally well, and you put yourself in this amazing piece. But you are one of those individuals who also held true to your system, and you did take all of the steps that are the gritty work that is being a job seeker, and you executed so well on all of those. And so I think what is the cool, unique thing about Linda is you have this unique power about yourself, that you are honest about who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses. You don't lay down to those weaknesses. No, you overcome those weaknesses. You sharpen your tools to make sure that those tools support those weaknesses and enhance your strengths. And I love the fact that you stayed not just in the community with this, but you stayed true to this community. You owned this community as a place that not only was a group that helped you, but then you truly nonstop, just like the ladder builder that you were constantly reaching back down that ladder and pulling other people up, and then realizing that, oh my gosh, yes, this ladder's in place now. I'm going to go build more ladders. And I think that is something that is just a definition of who you are. And if I want to sum this up, I would say this: you embodied the structure plus the support and unlocked your momentum. I think that's the phrase that I would lean on the most when I think of Linda, and I'm just so happy that we were able to chat today.
Oh my gosh. Well, Stephen, overwhelming. Thank you so much. And for you, I've said this to you before, I'm going to say it now for other people to hear. You see people so clearly, and you're able to crystallize their character so succinctly in a way that makes them feel so special. I don't know if I deserved everything you just said to me, but thank you for, as a leader, recognizing what people are going through, knowing that they need each other and that they need a very particular type of support, because it's not just the content, which is invaluable. It's the human side of it. And now we're just beating people over the head with it. But it really is like you see the humanity in people when they don't feel like they're fully themselves. And I remember being new to the group and seeing myself in grayscale and feeling like you all saw me in color. And that's really special. And your gift and your ability personally of doing that and helping other people feel seen and lifted up is so consequential at moments when they are so tired and so weak feeling from being tired, from the constant rejection, from the constant output with no reward. And I can remember several occasions you sent me voice memos that were so thoughtful and so uplifting and so validating, but also just reminding me of my strengths and reminding me of how you and others see me and what I actually am capable and who I actually am, not what I am, but who I am. And that humanness really matters at that time. So thank you for your gifts and for sharing that with people when they really need it, because that's the type of thing I couldn't get somewhere else.
It's awesome. And I, I thank you for those kind words. I really do. And it means a lot to me to hear that. And it's definitely an area of that, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to work in a space that I believe is a calling. And I don't say that lightly. I mean that whole is inside of my heart. And I truly do believe that the community is growing in a way that is going to allow us to be able to touch so many more people. So I will wrap us on those amazing last words before I get emotional, Linda, and get into some tears. But I want to wrap it with this, and it truly is this moment for if you're a job seeker and you've listened to us today, and you felt any of the emotions. If you're a job seeker and you don't understand what structure looks like, or you felt the way Linda felt in the beginning, where you couldn't find kind of the tools that you needed to actually get to work. And that's the truth. If you don't have a schedule for yourself as a job seeker and you're doing the Ricky Bobby moment with, I don't know what to do with my hands. Our program, I'm not going to call it a silver bullet. I'm kind of fond of it. It's one that I know works. It's one that I know helps over 50% of our members find a job in 3 months or less. It is a true asset to you if you felt any of what we've discussed today. And so the truth that we believe in is this: come join us for free. Join the Discord first. If you're not comfortable yet of paying $59.99 a month and being a member and experiencing Linda every single day inside of the chats, come join us for free, because we believe that mindset has to start first, and it starts first in that community. And that community is here, and it's there for you. It's for all of us. And I'm excited for the opportunity to bring so many more folks into the system, because I believe that they'll make it their own. They'll learn how to fish, and we will continue to tear down the walls and cut through the noise that is the current job market. And I'm blessed again to have the opportunity. Thank you again, Linda, for everything. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being a part of this community. And I am looking forward to celebrating in October when we are done with this.
We're going to have whiskey and bourbon.
Yeah, Kentucky bourbon, right? Kentucky bourbon.
Yes.
Yeah, we will have one for sure, and we will celebrate. And everybody, we look forward to inviting you back to our next success stories. It's actually already booked. We're already working through it. We have 2 more to go after that, so we're backlogged. I apologize for that. We will get these out more frequently. But, people are just awesome, and they're finding jobs. So we'll keep them coming. We'll keep them coming. But thank you, Linda, and everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen. Come join us. You can hang out with me.
And she's amazing.